right, so the parts are finally here. After going through and realizing I was gonna need many, many parts from dozens of brands, I figured the best person to call was our friends over at American Muscle. Now, we've been working together for over 15 years, so we have a very good relationship here at D'Antonio Automotive. Now, the convenient factor about American Muscle is they're located within 15 minutes of my shop. So for us to go online, find all the parts that we needed, buy them and get them shipped, for us, they were here within a day, but I know they do offer 2-day shipping nationwide, and they have everything. Now, to build the drag car, we obviously need to fix a lot of problems. One, the clutch in the car blown out. So we reached out to them to go for a McLeod twin disc clutch. Along with the clutch, hydraulic throwout bearing, all the things we're gonna need to make this work. Moving on from there, steering wheel. Now, one of the issues we're facing is when we go to put the roll bar in this car, getting in and out with a door bar is going to be tough. So a lot of drag racing friends that I spoke to told me I really want to get a low profile removable wheel and let us in and out of the car with ease while we get over the door bars. Now, moving forward drivetrain wise, with all of this increased power and this new twin disc clutch to really plant that power, we're gonna have to get it to the rear axle without blowing up. So one of the big things, Eaton TrueTrac. This will definitely be able to handle the power that we're gonna be throwing to that Ford 88 rear. And then to get it back there, one-piece Ford Racing aluminum drive shaft. One of the biggest, most common problems when you put power down on a Mustang. When you launch it with a 2-piece, that center section blows up. So now this one-piece Ford Racing aluminum drive shaft will alleviate all of those problems. Next up, wheel and tire. So to get this car to plant, we obviously need some kind of a really nice slick. So we reached out to American Muscle and they hooked us up with weld wheels. We went with a full bead lock in the rear and some skinny boys up front. I've had this problem in the past where I've launched an S197 on slicks and the studs twisted horribly. So ARPs are here to fix that problem. When you have a slick and it dead hooks, all of that pressure gets put on the axle face, and the studs. So having quality parts are a must. When you're doing a drag and drive event, the biggest hurdle is not the racing. It's driving to the next track. And driving a race car hundreds of miles every day to over 1,000 miles in a week, sound becomes the most irritating thing because it's so unbearably loud. So we fixed that problem with cutouts. So we'll be able to keep the factory style exhaust out the back, and when we're on the track, open the cutouts and these dumps will make this thing roar like a lion. So I've got the violent, loud race car on the track, but when I'm driving to the next one, nice and quiet so I can listen to the radio. So keeping those temperatures down, VMP came up with a very ingenious solution to that problem. An all-in-one modular heat exchanger setup that mounts right in the front. Beautiful aluminum, dual fans, all set up to run as it should to keep the temperatures in the intake and the cooling system down. So that blower continues to make maximum boost under maximum abuse. The next thing to do is we have to make the motor flow well. Our friends over at L&M Cam sent us over their complete package. This is camshafts, it's gears, it's guides, it's chains, everything you could possibly need to update the timing setup in your motor. Now the big deal with doing cams, now this is not a typical motor. A typical V8 uses one cam. The 5.4 uses dual overhead, so there's 4 camshafts. So when you think about putting a performance cam in a motor, you might have a price point in mind of under $1,000. Now, multiply that by 4 when you're doing a modular setup. So the Coyotes, the 5.4s, all of them use dual overhead, which becomes very expensive very fast. But because these motors can rev so well, you can make them breathe significantly better, and combining that with a blower, it is one hell of a combination to make your car a reliable, vicious, and competitive car on a racetrack. So for us, L&M cams were a must. Now, a lot of you think, I can have a race car, my car's fast. Well, you know what makes your car fast? A blower. in my case, a big one. And that's why we reached out to our friends at VMP Superchargers in Florida. Justin and his team were able to supply us with this monster, a VMP Gen 2R Supercharger. So along with this beautiful VMP Supercharger that I'm holding like a beautiful baby, they included everything I will need to make maximum power. Complete fuel system, air to water management. We've got everything from a throttle body to an intake to spark plugs to pulleys to a party pulley. Everything you could possibly need, VMP has you covered on your supercharged applications for any Ford product. I'm telling you guys, VMP is the place to call to make sure your Ford gets maximum boost. Now, there is a specific reason I chose to go with the Gen 2R and not the 3, 4, or 5. The class that I'm running in, I want to keep the car as close to a 10-second pass without going under. Going under 10s, you know, parachute, full roll cage, all the safety requirements change. And with me having to do a drag and drive event, I still want it to be a comfortable, reliable, drivable car. Now with this entire setup, we're hoping the car is going to run somewhere in the mid-10s. After speaking with Justin at VMP, we're pretty sure 10, maybe mid-10s in that range is a safe bet if I can get the car to launch properly, being a stick shift. And that's where the whole battle of fun comes into play. That's part of the biggest battle here, is getting this car dialed in enough to be consistent. And in the world of drag racing, consistency is key. So the Gen 2R, we figured, was the safest bet to get as consistent as possible to a mid to low 10. So that's why we went with this blower. Boost and horsepower are a pretty important component in racing, any form. Drag racing, road course, anything like that. But one of the more less talked about items in drag racing is proper suspension. So Racecraft provided us with everything our S197 is going to need to make sure this thing is firmly planted on the track. So as you can see in this box, which is all neatly packed, this is all control arms, bushing, spherical stuff, all that stuff that'll really make the vehicle plant and go straight. Because one of the enemies, especially with a Mustang, is when you launch the car, they tend not to really go straight. They tend to go into the nearest crowd. So we're trying to prevent crowd control here, and keeping the Mustang firmly planted is the name of the game. Springs and shocks are a big deal. If you can't get the car to sit right or plant right, having the best control arms on the planet doesn't matter. So we reached out to our friends at Kelltrac. Now Kelltrac makes really great drag racing products for a lot of cars, but their bread and butter is Mustangs. So what we got here is we have everything from your coil springs for going around the coilovers. We've got all kinds of mounts. Kelltrac has spent a lot of time engineering and thinking out how to make their products work perfectly for a drag racing application, specifically drag and drives. So when I reached out to them and explained to them exactly what I was doing, they were able to make me these coilovers. Now, some companies have everything ready to go off the actual shelf. But the reason I picked Kelltrac is all of their products are built to order for whatever application you want. So when I called them up and explained to them I was doing a drag and drive, it's a Shelby, it's a manual trans, it's running this much boost, horsepower is gonna be somewhere around here, they asked me a series of questions so they could properly dial in a coilover front and rear to my setup, so when I go to launch the car, not only does it launch straight, but it consistently launches the same way every time, preventing me from going left, right, and into the nearest crowd. So I mean, here you go. This is a perfect brand new front coilover that's fully adjustable for drag racing, autocross, whatever you guys want. But for this setup, they built these specifically for me so I can go on a drag and drive event and this thing will launch consistently. So that pretty much covers the basics of all the performance parts needed to get this Shelby GT500 project going. There's still a few odds and ends here in the 20-something boxes around the table and behind the camera. Things like long tubes and brakes and bracketry. but none of the really cool stuff that you really need to see on camera just yet. So enough of me talking about parts. It's time to put the parts on. But I think first things first, we get the car set up in the air and drop the subframe out, one of the beauties of the S197, so we can get the trans parts, engine parts, exhaust, and suspension handled on the front with ease. So it's time to stop talking and start working.